Colleagues, Patek Machaya, Senior Director, Library and Information Services at Walter Sisulu University. Our first presenter here is Alastair Cook from ACS Publications.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's my first time at a Stanley meeting, so it's a pleasure to be here. In fact, thank you for the invitation. A few first words about my names. That some of you might be cricket fans, and South Africa, I just heard of playing England today, so the other Alastair Cook couldn't be here, so they sent me instead. I'm the Regional Sales Director for Europe, Middle East, Africa for ACS Publications. I'm going with the assumption that many of you in this room know who ACS are, and possibly some of you don't. So I'm going to start a little bit with a background into who the American Chemical Society are. I'm going to kick off with that, tell a little bit about what's new at ACS, new over the last 12 or 18 months. I will then move on to the hot topic of the conference, which is open access, and talk you through what we currently do in open access, and maybe give you a little bit of insight into what is coming in the future, and just reaffirm the benefits that ACS bring to the chemistry and library communities. So the American Chemical Society, just to go through some of the basic facts, we are the world's oldest and largest scientific membership society, founded in 1876 in New York. We've got over 150,000 members worldwide. I think the main thing that I would like to emphasise is that we are a non-profit, we are a charity, and certainly in terms of the open access discussion, any surplus that we make as an organisation does not go into the hands of shareholders. It gets put back into science to fund scientific activities and to support libraries and information professionals. So, we have various national meetings. We have about 4,000 student chapters around the world, 32 technical divisions. I do have a colleague here, Harisha, I don't know whether she's in the room, but there is another part of the American Chemical Society, CAS, Chemical Abstract Service, who also have a stand here. They produce a number of products. I think their main product, most well-known product, is something called SciFinder, which is a chemical structure search database. I work for the Publications division, which is looking after the journals and books. So I'm sometimes a little bit ambivalent when I see kind of corporate mission statements, but again, I would re-emphasise that we are a non-profit. Everything that we do is designed to assist chemists, whether they be undergraduates, PhDs, or whether they work in industry to advance their careers and their mission of improving society through the research they do in chemistry. The publishing history of ACS, you can see through the slides coming out here, we got off to a bit of a slow start. From the first Journal of American Chemical Society, the flagship title, which started in 1879, only 7 titles were published up until the 1950s. And you can see that we have expanded our journal publishing program since then. We now have 51 titles, which include 2 completely open access titles. I'm not going to read off the screen here, but I think the 2 main things to emphasise is that we do, when we publish new titles, that is dictated, or decisions are made about launching new titles that are made by scientists. It's not that we're not a vanity publisher, and decisions to expand our publishing program is not decided by accountants. Obviously, journals need to have a sound commercial backing behind them as well. But we essentially add about 2 or 3 titles maximum per annum to our portfolio. So again, a little bit of background into what our portfolio is. We currently have 51 peer-reviewed journals. As I said, 2 or 3 new titles every year. We had about 40,000 peer reviews chemistry-related articles per annum. We also have a digital, a legacy archive, which is everything prior to 1996, back to the 1870s. And in total, we have over 1 million chemistry-related research articles. We also have an ebooks platform. I think the main thing I would say about our ebooks platform, it's on the same platform as the journals, that these are peer-reviewed chemistry-related ebooks. There aren't a huge number of them, and that's essentially because they are peer-reviewed. Again, it's the quality, anything which has a ACS stamp of quality assurance put on it needs to pass a very high level of scientific quality criteria. The other thing we publish as well is something called CNEN, which is Chemistry and Engineering News. This has been for many years and still is. It's essentially the ACS weekly magazine. Members get a copy of this as part of their membership. It's essentially news and current affairs related to chemistry and chemistry-related science, and it comes out weekly. So, in terms of what's new, I mean, I've recently mentioned that we add 1 or 2 titles per annum. These get validated by experts in their field. I put the words impact factor into my presentation on a couple of occasions. I know impact factor was rigorously looked at yesterday in our presentation from our colleague in Belgium. I think impact factors, I don't think they've been debunked, but I do think they need to be put into context, but they are still one of many mechanisms that information professionals can look at to assess the relative quality of a new title. We have just one new journal this year. I'm not going to tell you that much about it now. I'm going to leave this one hanging a little bit because we're sponsoring the gala dinner this evening, and there is a astronaut theme, as you know, so I'm going to leave this one hanging out there and tell you a little bit more about this title over the dinner this evening. I mentioned CNEN, the Chemical Engineering News, which is the kind of weekly newsletter of the American Chemical Society. This has been online for many years, but it has recently been put onto the same platform as all the journals and books. And anybody who has a subscription to the ACS package gets this now as part of their package at no additional cost. And obviously we're a digital publisher, so 2 of the things we've added recently to improve and increase the use of our services is something called ACS Live Slides, so that this enables researchers to post all kinds of digital content in addition to their manuscripts. About 2 years ago we launched ACS To Go, which is essentially a way for students or users at subscribing institutions to authenticate with our network to be able to access ACS content wherever they are. This was launched about 2 years ago, and I think about 25% of our downloads now come from students either sitting at an airport, sitting on a bus, i.e. not on campus, and it's something we will see increasing, I'm sure. We've also introduced some new services for authors, subject experts who can help in increasing the quality of manuscripts pre-submission. And yeah, so that's just a lot. I could obviously tell you a lot more about ACS in terms of the publishing program, but given the theme of the conference, I wanted to move on and tell you what we are currently doing, but in terms of open access. There is a website you can go to. It's www.acsopenaccess.org. This will give you a lot more information than I can tell you in these few minutes, but essentially we have 5 slices of fruit in terms of what we provide in open access, and there is a 6th actually, which I'll come to in a moment. if I go from the right here, there are two open access journals, which I will come to, I think, on the next slide. I'm going to talk here about the first three here. The one on the left is something called author choice. This is the ability for authors who are paying an APC to ACS to do various things with regard to the kind of license that they may wish to choose. Part of it is offering discounts. Anybody who is an ACS author who comes from an institution which subscribes to ACS automatically gets a 25% discounts. And there's a number of levels here. I don't really have time to go through them all, but if you're an ACS member, you get another level of discounting. And in many cases, this can bring the APC charge down to about $750. This program has been going on for about 5 years now, and the number of downloads we've had of articles which now have an author choice license associated with it is around 4 million. So it has been a relatively successful program. ACS Editor's Choice is quite simple to explain. Every day of the year, one of our journal editors will choose a prominent article and make it open access. So that's obviously 365 articles per year are made open. ACS Author Awards, which is the orange in the middle, this was an open access stimulus program. It's actually ending this year. It kicks off in 2014. The basic premise was that anybody who had been published in an ACS title in 2014 was given credits of up to $1,500, which could be offset against an APC charge for any future article which was accepted in an ACS title. So this was essentially a $60 million global program to incentivize people to start publishing their articles open access. We also have two completely open access titles. ACS Central Science was launched at the end of 2015. This is completely open access. That means there are no subscription charges and there are no APC charges. There's no cost to the community at either side. It is a very highly selective publication, and we're only looking to publish about 200 articles per annum. The second open access title we have is ACS Omega. I think this fits into the nomenclature of being a mega journal. This was launched towards the middle of last year. The basic tenets behind it is that there is an emphasis on rapid publication. There is an emphasis on manuscript transfer, by which I mean an author who maybe wasn't accepted for another ACS title, their articles can be seamlessly transferred to the editorial board to be considered for publication in this title. There are APC charges associated with it, but they are much lower than the other titles that we publish. And one kind of heads up about one initiative we're currently working on. There will be a formal announcement about this, I think, probably towards the latter half of the year, maybe after the summer. So there are some things that I can't formally tell you, but what it is, it's a peer review. It's a preprint server for chemists and for chemistry. It's an initiative being led by the American Chemical Society, but we are working with. Again, I'm not officially allowed to say their names, but let's just say some of them are in this room and most of them are at the stand around the corner. All the other publishers in chemistry will all be working together on this initiative. So it's a preprint server in the field of chemistry. I suspect the actual launch of it may be towards the beginning of next year, but there will be a formal announcement about it as the negotiations with the other publishers get resolved. I think probably around September or October. So that's something coming up very soon. The last piece here is just to talk about how ACS content is consumed globally, and a little bit about how it's consumed in South Africa. but people look at the word American and assume that everything is focused on America. Obviously, America is still a country with a huge research output, but if you look at where this one, in terms of our global footprint, in terms of where our manuscripts come from, you can see that basically Asia is now outstripping the United States. And yeah, obviously the percentages here tell stories. There is still relatively little output coming out from Africa in its totality, and the Middle East. Europe is still strong, but Asia is really the number that I would point out here. It is now currently outstripping what's going on in the Americas. In terms of international editorial offices as well, these are offices outside of the US. We do have them all over the globe now. We don't currently have one in Africa, but they are spread all across Europe, and there's been a lot of offices opening in China and India over the past 3 or 4 years. In terms of where authors come from, 66% of articles come from outside North America, and 76% of those downloads come from outside North America. So very good. It's very much a global picture. I think also when people hear the word chemistry, they think it's just our content is just applicable to chemistry departments. I don't think this just appertains to chemistry, but I think many scientific disciplines now are multidisciplinary. And if you look at the articles which are citing ACS journal articles, over nearly 65% of them are coming from outside pure chemistry departments. So, and if you look at some of the fields that we're now publishing in, a couple of examples here, photonics and the sustainable energy fields, you can see that chemistry touches many other aspects across STM. I'll skip over that one. Again, in terms of metrics, again, I think we've heard at the conference, and you will know that to get a full picture, you need to look at all kinds of metrics, impact factor, H factor, usage, alt metrics, all of the things that are being developed now. I still think that the actual downloads are strong indicative of the utility of a publisher's content, and ACS articles the total global download is over 90 million in 2015 is the latest data that I have. So there is a continued demand for the content. Downloads per region, again, I think the thing you will see coming out of that slide is that it is the word Asia. And in terms of the investment that has gone into funding and research output in that part of the globe. The reason for putting this slide is not to bite at the heels of my competitors in chemistry, but my view on subscriptions is that budgets permitting is that people should have everything, because every article is different. But the fact that the reason for putting this slide up is really to emphasise the quality stamp that ACS put on the content. We are the most highly cited publisher in chemistry. One example of the reasons for that, in terms of the editorial management of the content, one department that we have in the US, we have a technical editing division who look at every single article which is accepted for publication. These articles, they're not outsourced, they're not shipped off to the Philippines or somewhere. These articles are then reviewed by an ACS employed technical editor who, generally speaking, are PhD chemists. They are paid a PhD American chemist salary, and they go through every single article, reformat it, go back and forth with the author to make sure that the quality of each article is as good as it possibly can be. So it's the quality stamp, which is one reason for the statistics that you're seeing here. We've said enough about impact factors, so I'll pass over that. And benefits of authorship, I'm not going to read off the screen here, but I think, again, the thing I maybe emphasise is the last bullet here about seamless manuscript transfer. People who may not be accepted in one ACS journal can have their article very quickly passed on to another title, to one of our open access titles, for the editorial board to review that. Authors have the choice, if their article has been accepted for publication, to have the accepted version published within 24 hours of acceptance, and an average time between submission and acceptance can be as little as 6 weeks. So just a few stats to relate to South Africa. Again, I won't read off the screen, but again, and these need to be put into context with all the other review analytics that you use to assess the utility of your subscriptions. These are the cost per downloads across the consortium members over the last 4 years. And I put up here as well the total downloads, which these are total. On the left at the bottom here, you've got the total download count for ACS articles back to 2013. Firstly, without looking at open access articles that have been downloaded, and then with. And when you look at the numbers, you can see that the percentile of open access articles being downloaded is going up each year. 15 was about 6,000, and 16 it was about 9,000. So you can see the increment going up of how many OA titles are being downloaded per annum. In terms of South African authors, the metric we use to measure that is we look at who the corresponding author is. That's what it's based on, and you can see it's been hovering around the 50-60 mark for the last 3 years. You can see in terms of how many open access articles, that's obviously indicative with the challenges you face in South Africa for getting funding for open access. I think I'm approaching the end, but last but not least, we do have a South African chapter of the American Chemical Society. It was founded just over 3 years ago. The chair is at the University of the Witwatersrand School of Chemistry. One of the global programs that we have to support both library, but in particular chemists, is something called ACS on Campus. And there's a website there, you can see acsoncampus.org, you can get more information there. We did run an event there about 4 years ago. These are events where we get students, PhDs, masters, faculty, we get people from outside, we get people to come in to give presentations on career development, whether students want to pursue a career in academia or in industry. My colleagues at SciFinder demonstrate how to use their products as well. These are generally 2 or 3 day events where senior ACS journal editors get flown in from sometimes from the US, sometimes from Europe. And it's about supporting, it's 2 days of support and encouragement to the chemists of today and the future to advance their studies and their careers. And we're looking to it's been 4 years since we had one, but we're looking to kickstart and have another event in South Africa, hopefully sometime in 2018. But I'm at the end now, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before Alastair gets back to his seat, we've been advised by Sanlik that ACS will be sponsoring our dinner tonight. Thank you very much for that.